Hey everybody, I'm back with another review, and this time we're talking about Batman number 455 to 457, which is a three-part story called Identity Crisis. It's got nothing to do with the Brad Meltzer event. This is its own thing. It's from 1990, if I have my dates correct, and it's a story that deals with the ramifications of the previous Batman story I reviewed, Detective Comics 618 to 621, Rite of Passage. It's a direct follow-up to that. That story was all about Tim wanting to become stronger, and here we have Tim's first real big push to become Robin. Essentially what this story is about is there's a bunch of people wearing masks and on a whim killing people. And Vicky Vale on the side is investigating as well as Batman. And while they're doing that, Tim is trying to dive more into the concept of Robin and what he can bring to that mythology and why he feels like he needs to earn his spot there. There are quotes at the beginning of every issue, and there's one in the back of the book that kind of summarizes what we're talking about here. The quote is from the Encyclopedia of Magic and Superstition, and it says, "A masked person is not simply a man or woman whose real identity is hidden, but he is an enigmatic entity standing outside the sphere of ordinary conduct, enjoying a freedom of movement and conduct denied to ordinary men. The donning of a mask is believed to change a man's identity and faculties, for the assumed appearance is held to affect the wearer's inner nature and to assimilate it to that of being represented by the mask." So it's very much a story about masks if you can't get that from the quote. All the way to the point of Tim is haunted by the ghosts of Jason and Dick Grayson. Naturally, Dick Grayson is dead, but he sees in his mind both of these previous Robins pushing him towards a direction and trying to understand what they both died for and created. And Bruce gives Tim a pretty simple explanation about what the point of wearing the mask is. He says the mask makes you larger than life, and it feeds your strength while making others afraid of you. And Tim's having a hard time swallowing that for the first couple issues. He's trying to figure out what that means, especially considering that he's just a kid and he can't exactly be imposing, especially in the Robin costume. And that maybe the Robin mask has a different meaning than the Batman costume. And then you pair this with the people that are going around the city killing people on a whim, and you realize that they lack a fear of consequence. They don't have any inhibitions, and it ties back to the Scarecrow. And the Scarecrow's got the exact same philosophy of masks, that you put on a mask and you become a different person, and it hides your fears and it hides your inhibitions, and it brings out the animal in you. It brings out this thing that makes you stronger and able to make others afraid. And it very clearly defines that Batman, without someone to reel him back, like Robin, is very hard, if not impossible, to separate from the people that he fights. Really clearly represented in Scarecrow, because the intimidation tactics of Batman are not very far apart from Scarecrow at all. The only difference is Batman does it out of a sense of justice, and Scarecrow does it out of the name of science, because he loves fear, and he's got this obsession with studying fear. Although in this story, it's more about a twisted sense of selfishness, because he wants to deliver a present to himself, and the present is Batman. It's about this instant gratification. So you get Batman, who's kidnapped by the Scarecrow, and Tim has to figure out a way to save him, but he can't do it as Robin. He thinks the costume has way too much weight to it, that the costume is a very different ideal than he's learned to uphold yet. So you get this point where Tim just decides to go out and save Batman, and it's out of a very simple desire to just do the right thing. And Tim comes away with this idea that the will to act means a lot more than a mask, and the only thing the mask does is give your actions symbolism. It gives your actions something to anchor themselves to, but simply putting on a mask is not the same thing as having the will to act. The only reason Bruce and Scarecrow have got that is because they've got this underlying rage or fascination feeding their movement. That both of them are a little bit more unhinged. The mask makes them more animalistic, more about the high concept, and it forces them into action. They really do become different people. And Tim, because he's still younger and innocent, decides that the mask is just something that's obligatory. That Tim Drake is who he is naturally. That's the biggest part of him. That's the thing that makes him different, and that's the thing that makes him worthy of Robin. That he's not Jason Todd, he's not Dick Grayson, but he's simply living up to that ideal. There's a lot of influence in Terry McGinnis. A lot of Terry McGinnis's journey as Batman Beyond is kind of inspired by the way Tim Drake does things. I'm not sure if it's done directly, but it's very implicitly there. Because it is about taking up someone else's mantle and having someone else in your ear, and that pushes you forward to become better. Because Tim, in a lot of ways, was groomed to replace Batman, and that just got derailed by the end of the old 52. But he is that kind of character. And part of the symbolism with both ghosts haunting him is that he thinks the costume itself is just something he's not worthy of, whether or not he's a better Robin than them or not. That there's an attached sense of history there, and if he's going to do it, he has to do it either on his own terms or on new defined terms. So that's kind of what the story. That's kind of what the story is about. That's kind of the crux of it. And the fuel for Tim's fire, the fuel to get stronger and get better and to become a true Robin and to really cash in on why Robin matters, is that his dad's paralyzed and his mother's died. He's got a lot of issues in life, and he's got a lot of tragedy, and he thinks that Robins are just paved by this kind of tragedy, that they barely get any sort of semblance of happiness just by association by Batman. And he learns that it's not really that way. That the previous Robins, Dick created a legacy, and Jason died defending it. And yeah, it's got its ghosts, and yeah, it's got its hauntings and its tragedies, and he's constantly afraid of letting everyone down. But he can't let that cripple him, and that's more reason than ever to become a new type of Robin, to become the kind of sidekick that Batman needs, the kind of sidekick that Jason and Dick weren't. Part of the appeal to this particular story is that it's not just a story that helps convince people why Robin matters, why he's an important character. It's there partly to convince people at DC why Robin matters. There is this very 50-50 divide, this break in the status quo of some people thought Robin is the greatest thing to ever come out of the Bat mythology. Other people thought, no, he's just the worst. And one of the architects of Tim Drake was in the latter camp that thought Tim Drake is just a terrible or not Tim Drake, but Robin is a really dumb idea. Chuck Dixon was really unsure of what new direction you could take this character in. So by writing this story, what Alan Grant and what a lot of other people at DC did is convince people like Chuck Dixon and people in the sphere of influence in the bad editorial pool of why Tim Drake why Robin matters, and why Tim Drake can be the ultimate refining of that concept. At the third time, they really got it right. And Chuck Dixon fell so much in love with the idea of Tim Drake as Robin and just Robin as a concept because of the story that he became one of the defining creators in all of Tim Drake's history, working on a major part of the original ongoing and writing the various miniseries that defined Tim Drake's journey into becoming a real superhero. So it's got a lot of interesting history already surrounding it. It's hard not to talk about Tim Drake almost from a retrospective angle, because he's such an interesting creation, and he's so well defined, not just on his own terms, but by the history that brought him there. And there's always a kind of meta commentary in every story of what's going on in comics, and why Batman as a creation is inseparable from the creation of Robin. And it's something that a lot of people don't give it credit for, and a lot of non-comic readers think that Robin is not necessary. But the biggest crime in all of the film adaptations of Batman, and a lot of the various animated series is up to a point, is that they don't give Robin the proper gravitas. That Robin is this giant aspect of the character that we just ignore. It's, in my mind at least, it's like making a Captain America series and forgetting about the shield. And forgetting what the shield is supposed to mean and what the shield is used for. We do that with Batman all the time. We don't even realize it. I can understand why some people would prefer to have their Batman as a loner character, but he's not built that way. He's not part of that tradition. That's not what his literary structure is designed for. You can tell really good stories with him by himself, but you always need something like Robin. You always need someone in the area to help define terms, and a lot of times we assign that to Alfred. The Nolan trilogy could have only avoided it for so long, and we created John Blake, who I don't like whatsoever. I think John Blake's a terrible character, but that's a different review altogether. I guess this review's almost kind of served as more of just like history of Tim Drake and more of just background talk of why he's a cool character. At the end of the story, he gets a new costume. He gets the classic designed Robin costume, the one you see in the Batman animated series, and the one that kind of dominates comics afterwards, the one with the full legs and everything. And at the end of Robin A Hero Reborn trade, which collects this story and the first Robin miniseries, you get a cool schematic of what the new Robin suit looks like and what its various functions are and what its body armor does and stuff like that. And it's pretty cool to look at. And this also just lends more to the themes of the story, that the Robin suit that's displayed in the Batcave, the Jason Todd suit, has got its history, it's got its legacy, and it should stay as an artifact of the war Batman's fighting. And Tim needs something else. Tim is a different person. Tim's a different character. Tim has a similar purpose through different methods, and to support that change and that evolution, he needs a new costume. And it's a really good design. I like this costume a lot better than any of the other costumes that Tim would eventually get. So yeah, this is a great story. This is another classic part in Robin's journey. There is essentially a 5-act structure to this. The first story being A Lonely Place of Dying, that introduces the notion that Batman needs a Robin. After that, you get Detective 618 to 621, Rite of Passage, which introduces what the superhero side of Robin is, what that character is as a concept. Then you get here in Batman 455 to 457, Identity Crisis, which is about what the weight of that character's history means for its most current wearer, and how Tim can carve out his own identity as Robin, and figure out what's necessary of him in terms of growth and as a person and as of equipment to become the new Robin. And then after this, there is the first Robin miniseries, which deals with his journey into becoming his own styled crime fighter with his own experiences. And that's a different review for a different time. So let me know what you guys think of this story. Let me know in the comments whether you agree or disagree. Let me know what you guys thought of the story, and I will see you next time.